everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So in 1997 the movie The Jackal was released. I saw it because I wanted to see some cool action and some cool assassin things, and I thought that the movie was moderately fine with some really head-scratching moments that made me go, why did they do that? And I didn't like Bruce Willis and I hated Richard Gere in that movie and in general, so that didn't help either. But then I was informed that this was in fact a sort of kind of a remake of an early 70s movie, and I did some digging and found out, hey, that there is this book that it is based on, a really successful book that was written in the 1970s. So I actually found that book in a old bookshop and stuff like that. So I bought it and I read it, and I thought it was a really good book, and I thought this actually makes that old Jackal movie seems even worse than I actually thought originally that it was. And then I saw The Day of the Jackal, and then I just realized, man, this Jackal thing, that is fucking awful. So we are luckily going to take a look today at one of the greatest early 70s thrillers that's ever been made. This is The Day of the Jackal. So the OSA is a terrorist organization of some description, and they're really pissed at Charles de Gaulle because he allowed Algeria to become an independent country. The movie takes place somewhere in the mid-60s, by the way. I like that small little detail. It doesn't take place in 1972, but that is a story for another time. Now, they have tried to assassinate Charles de Gaulle, and they have failed in doing so. What's even worse is that the French police comes knocking and kills a lot of, the top brass, and those who aren't killed are arrested. So they retreat to their lair to lick their wounds and figure out how to best respond to this one. Now they really want to kill de Gaulle as a revenge for this, and then they find this mysterious British assassin with the code name The Jackal, and he says that I can do this. This is my last job as an assassin. That's why you're going to pay me $500,000 in cash, otherwise I will not do it. Now, one thing I really liked about this movie is the fact that the OSA doesn't have $500,000 in cash. All the time in movies like this, all these evil organizations, terrorist organizations, they're always loaded with cash, but actually in this movie they have to actually do bank robberies and stuff like that to come up with enough cash for the Jackal to be satisfied. And now he has gone underground, and he says, I'm going to do this pretty damn soon. Now the Jackal, he takes a lot of pride in his work, and he doesn't really hate de Gaulle or anything like that. This is a job to him, but it is the ultimate job, and it is his planning that is going to bring de Gaulle down. And he stays under the radar, and he's making these keys, and he's planning stuff, and we don't know how he's going to do this. We don't know how he's going to get to a man that is so protected as the French president. So most of the movie is actually spent on him going to the gunsmith to get a very small, compact and sleek rifle, testing it, making those keys, as I said, and dressing up as different things, and masquerading himself and stuff like that. And we don't know how he's going to do this, but that is the fun of this movie. And the big manhunt that starts after him is sort of almost secondary to the whole thing, because the authorities finds out that there is going to be an attempt at de Gaulle's life, but they don't know what the Jackal looks like. They don't know who he is. They don't know how he's going to do it, when he's going to do it. They just know that the clock is ticking for de Gaulle, but de Gaulle doesn't want to budge for any assassin or stuff like that. People have tried to take his life before, so he isn't scared, so he's not going to change his schedule or anything like that. So they're trying to find him, but he's so smart, and he has gone underground, and they can't find him. So is the Jackal going to be able to kill de Gaulle, and what's going to happen if he does? Or are they going to figure out who he is, and are they going to be able to stop him? That is essentially what this movie is. I love the fact that this movie is focused on the assassin's preparation for the job, rather than the cop or you know, detective or anything like that who's going to try to stop the assassin from, you know, doing the assassin thing. I think more movies should be worked like this. Also, this movie is the absolute opposite of what the Jackal is, including good. For instance, the slow pace that they had in the Jackal did not benefit that movie because that movie was so fucking boring. In this case, the slow pace is methodical and it is thoughtful and it, you know, heightens the tension and everything like that, and that is so fucking good. And also, if you're going to compare, you know, guns or anything like that, the monster gun that Bruce Willis had in the Jackal was so ludicrous and so ridiculous that it was sort of almost a parody of the Jackal. In this movie, the gun is small, which actually makes it almost a little bit more scary than, you know, that awfully big gun that was responsible for one of the few things in the Jackal that actually worked. The sequence with Jack Black, which was, you know, equal parts hilarious and equal parts gruesome. Oh my god! Anyway, so this movie is a cold, classical 1970s thrillers with lots of great tension to itself. And let's talk about the greatest asset of the movie The Day of the Jackal. The Jackal himself. Edward Fox is so fucking good in this movie. He's one of the greatest movie assassins of all time, together with, you know, Vincent, Mitch Leary, Sugar, the nameless assassin that Michael Fassbender played in The Killer, and of course Leon. And unfortunately for him, he doesn't really have anybody else to share the screen with, because, you know, the rest of the yahoos in this movie is not a who's who of, you know, 70s cinema. It's who's that? Except, of course, for Michael Lonesdale in his very good but all too brief side character that shows up for a little bit. But he's awesome, and the rest of them is kind of they could have been, you know, a lot more interesting. But the movie has such tension to itself, and it builds and it builds and it builds until the absolutely amazing finale and the great crescendo. Now, if you've never seen this movie, I can really, really recommend it. This is a ice-cold, awesome 1970s thriller, and if that is something that you think you're going to like, you're probably going to love this movie. Now, if you have already seen this movie and feels a bit curious of, you know, the remake, do yourself a favor and kill that curiosity right now, because it is just a bad movie. Now, there are of course some things in this movie that doesn't quite work, because this movie is a little bit too long for its own good, and sometimes the Jackal's meticulous planning gets a little bit too meticulous for itself, and sometimes he goes a little bit too far, and sometimes they run the risk of overcomplicating things. But that is also how the book is structured, and this is, by the way, a very good adaptation of the book. If you haven't read the book, do read it, and if you haven't seen this movie, see it. How many times better is The Day of the Jackal than The Jackal? I don't know exactly, but it is a far superior movie, which I give 84 points. Besides the fact that this is a very tense and very stylized movie, it's a very tense movie with a brilliant Fox in the titular role. And the movie just oozes coolness. And even though I think it was maybe a little bit unnecessary to include, you know, the sort of side plot where, you know, OSI has also, you know, infiltrated parts of the French government in order to help, the Jackal still worked, even though it took maybe a little bit too much time from, you know, the planning and the manhunt thing, but it still worked, and it was still a very good part of this movie. So I'll see you next time for so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.